So here, in these verses which we have been reading, a self-realized soul, his existence in this material world, how he perceives, how he realizes the Supreme Lord, how he relates with other living entities, how he sees the material energy of the Lord, everything is very nicely described. We find similar explanations in Bhagavad Gita also. Arjuna had also inquired from Krishna, Sthita Pragnasya ka bhasha, person who is merged in the Supreme Lord, in his consciousness, who is Sthita Pragna, who has attained Krishna consciousness. How does he sit in this material world? How does he walk? How does he see things? All those things were inquired by Arjuna also. So, here as we can see, what we are reading in Krishna consciousness through the explanations given by the 6 Goswamis is all present in Srimad Bhagavatam. That is why it is a great credit to these 6 Goswamis. Nana Shastra Vicharaneka Nipunau Sadharma Samsthapakau. They went through all the different Vedic literature, Shruti, Smriti, Vedanta, everything, just to take out the saram, the essence, and establish real dharma. So, in the last verse and the verse previous to that, it was explained very nicely about how the self-realized soul, he perceives the presence of the Supreme Lord everywhere. So that was as far as how to perceive the Supreme Lord. So I'll just read that. The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection on water and again as a second reflection on the wall of a room, although the sun itself is situated in the sky. So, Prabhupada there very nicely explained about that. Even though the Supreme Lord may be present in his own abode, very far, far away like the sun, but the sun can still be realized. You see, this is very important. It is not that only when we go back to Godhead, when we enter into spiritual planet, then only we will realize the Supreme Lord. So the example is given that even though the sun may be very far, far away, and one day you may reach the sun, one day you may go and enter the sun, but still sun can be realized, sitting far, far away by its reflection, isn't it? So Prabhupada gave that example. In the wall, when the sun is reflected, you can realize. In the pot, the reflection of the sun, in some, when water is filled, you can realize that. So similarly, the Supreme Lord can be realized everywhere in this material world. Kardama Muni, when he was giving very important instructions to Devahuti, on how to realize the Supreme Lord. Because Devabhuti desired that she should have a son, the Supreme Lord. So at that time, Kardama Muni tells him few very important things. He says, with faith, follow the instructions I am giving you. Carry out all your prescribed duties, the different kinds of activities involved which are required for self-realization, and worship the Supreme Lord who is seated inside the heart as Paramatma. So Prabhupada explains this is the method of realizing the Self, the Supreme Lord. With full faith, one follows the instructions of the spiritual master, does his duty in Krishna consciousness, whatever different activities are given, with faith, executes those duties, and worships the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada says, it is not required that one has to search out for the Supreme Lord, because He is present right in our heart as Paramatma, right in every living entity. So, that is how one has to realize the Supreme Lord. So, similarly, here the example is given that a self-realized soul, he is able to perceive the Supreme Lord everywhere. And then, with respect to material world, how does he act? He is still situated in this material body. Does the body have some effect on him? All those things are also described. What is his perception in this material world? Somebody says, I have realized the Supreme Lord. Yesterday I saw Supreme Lord in my dream. I have realized Him. Isn't it? So what does it mean to realize the Supreme Lord? That is very important. When we realize the Supreme Lord, our perception, our actions, our behavior, everything will transform. Everything will transform. So, how does it transform? In the last purport, Prabhupada explained, there are two conceptions, there are two status of life. Conditional state, liberated state. By their actions, one can understand who is in conditioned life and who is liberated. You see, that is very important. Because Prabhupada explains, everything has a symptom. That is why Arjuna is asking the symptoms of a person who is self-realized. Isn't it? How he works, his work will be different from how ordinary person works. Just like a healthy man has his symptom, sick man has his symptom. Poor man has his symptom, rich man has his symptom. Educated man has his symptom, illiterate has his symptom. Similarly, self-realized soul has his symptom. And Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita, the best symptom is when he speaks. Because till one may appear externally to be a great gentleman, but when he opens his mouth, one can understand whether he is a fool or he is learned. So, here In the last verse, very beautiful example Prabhupada gave about one of the very important symptom of a self-realized soul. In conditional state, one accepts everything as an object of sense gratification. This is the major symptom of conditioned soul. Everything is meant for my enjoyment, my wife, my children, my nation, mine, belonging to me, meant for my enjoyment, my money, isn't it? This is conditioned life. And Prabhupada gives one example, very beautiful example. When a conditioned soul, he sees a beautiful rose, he thinks, beautiful rose meant for my sense enjoyment. I will gift it to my lover, isn't it? Valentine Day. Everybody with a rose, meant for my enjoyment. Isn't it? This is conditioned life. What is the difference between a self-realized soul? Simple. He sees everything as the reflection of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is independent of the Supreme Lord. Nothing. Everything is the reflection of the Supreme Lord. So when he sees a beautiful rose, he understands that this was made possible because of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. It is made possible to look beautiful like this. And if it is made from his energy, it belongs to him. And if it belongs to somebody, it must be utilized for him. So devotee, when he sees a beautiful rose, he appreciates the creative energy of the Supreme Lord. What a great creator the Supreme Lord is. It belongs to him and it must be utilized to serve him. So he appreciates that beautiful creation of the Lord and he brings it to the temple and offers it at the feet of the Lord. That yes, this should be offered in the service of the Lord. So this is one example. Prabhupada explains this is not just with other objects. Okay, this belongs to God, but the senses are mine. Body is mine. Intelligence is mine. Rose is God's. That belongs to God. That is easy to understand. It is not mine. But body, how do I understand this body is not mine? Very difficult. Everybody, even devotees, we say, Prabhu, my mind is like this. Arre Baba, it is not your mind. If a devotee can understand, it is Krishna's. Krishna's. Body is Krishna's. Intelligence belongs to Krishna. Then actually he is liberated. That is the meaning of saying difference between conditioned soul and a liberated soul. He sees the reflection of the Supreme Lord even in his own senses, in his own mind, in his own intelligence, and thus he utilizes everything in the service of the Lord. What is that verse Rupa Goswami says? Iha yasye harer dasye. Then karmana manasa gira nikhilashu api avasthasu jivan muktasa uchyate. He understands. And nikhilashu api avasthasu, in whatever situation he may be in, that does not matter. But once he has understood everything belongs to the Supreme Lord, then he serves with karmana, manasa, vacha, because it all belongs to him. It must be engaged in His service. Then he is called liberated, even though staying in this material body. So then one may wonder, what is this you are saying? Staying in this material body and still he is aloof from the body? He is aloof from misidentification with the body? Yes. That is what it is explained in today's verse. It says, although a devotee appears to be merged, bhuta shukshmendriya mana buddhi adishu iha nidraya lineshu asti. Looks like lineshu, just like we say, no? मैं भगवान की भक्ति में लीन हूँ. I am merged in God consciousness. Lineshu means to be merged in something. Even externally looking like, it may seem like a devotee is merged in this material body, because he is also having this so-called material body. What all? That is explained here. Bhuta, material elements, Panchabhuta. Shukshma, there are objects of senses. Vishaya Vastu. Then Indriya, material senses. There are 10 senses, 5 working and 5 knowledge acquiring. Manaha, mind. Buddhi, intelligence. Adishu, totally 24 elements. That is what Sankhya describes. So all these 24 elements looks like devotee, self-realized soul is also merged, because he is situated in that. He is also working with the mind, he is also working with the intelligence. He is also perceiving the sense objects like any of us. But still he is aloof from all of them. That is what is explained. And this is what Srila Rupa Goswami says. It confirms whatever is given in Bhagavatam is what is given by these great Goswamis. So, in the translation, Prabhupada says, although a devotee appears to be merged in 5 material elements, objects of material enjoyment, material senses, material mind and intelligence. Now what is the difference? There are 2 differences. Appears to be merged in all these material elements, but devotee is awake. What is that word used? Anybody from here? Vinidro. See? Earlier it was used iha nidraya. Looks like he is sleeping. Looks like in ignorance he is merged in all these material elements. But what is his real position? Even though he is situated in this material body, he is awake. He is not sleeping. Conditioned soul is sleeping. That is the difference. Then what is it? What else is there? Nirahankriyaha. He is freed from the false ego. What is the meaning of freed from the false ego? Conditioned soul identifies himself with his mind, my intelligence, my body, my senses, right? And liberated soul is free. It is Krishna's senses, Krishna's body given to me for some time to be utilized in his service. That is his conception. And he utilizes properly everything. Karmana, Manasa, Gira, Vacha, everything surrenders to the Lord. Falsely, which he was claiming to be mine. Manasa deho geho, je kichu more. Whichever I was claiming, this is mine, my mind, my family, my this. Arpilu tuva pade Nandakishore. I just surrender unto you because this is not mine, it all belongs to you. This is called Nikhilashu api avasthasu jivan muktasya uchyate. He is awake and he is nirahankriyaha. He is not bound with false ego. He does not misidentify. He understands all these are also creation of the Lord, meant to be given in the service of the Lord, and I am also part and parcel of the Lord. So I should also engage, and right now these are all given to me. I should engage all of them also. Dovetail everything in service of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains two ways he can be liberated. When he is completely serving like this, that everything belongs to Krishna, and when he is thinking to engage, still he is liberated. When he wants that, yes, I want to engage all these things in the service of the Lord, he is still liberated. He should be considered to be liberated from this material world, even though he is present in this material body, even though he is present in this material world. So I'll just read one small portion of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains that yes, such thing happens. A self-realized soul, he is speaking, he is evacuating, he is getting up, he is walking, he is working, everything he is doing. But still, he is completely aloof from this material world. It is possible. It is not that only when we give up, then we become liberated. One can be liberated even while staying in this material body. So what happened was, Arjuna asks once again in 5th chapter, once again he asks, Krishna, first of all you asked me to renounce work. And then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which one of the two is more beneficial? So Prabhupada explains, when did Krishna advise Arjuna like this? Isn't it? So in the purport, if you see, Prabhupada explains this. In the 2nd chapter, preliminary knowledge of the soul and its entanglement in the material body were explained. So first of all, immediately when Krishna started speaking in the 2nd chapter, Krishna first gave the knowledge about soul being different from this material body, how the soul has become entangled, and how by Buddhi Yoga it can become liberated. That is how Krishna started in the 2nd chapter. 3rd chapter, Prabhupada explains in just essence what Krishna gave. In the 3rd chapter, it was explained, person who is situated on the platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. It's great, isn't it? Somebody who has now come to the platform of self-realization that yes, I am spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. He has no duties whatsoever to perform. So Arjuna is thinking, no work, inaction. Somebody who is in knowledge, he doesn't have to work. Correct? That is how we will conclude. He has no duties to perform. So Krishna has confused Arjuna. Because speaking this, Krishna is telling Arjuna, now you fight. You gave me knowledge, I am spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. I should have no work to perform, and you are telling me now fight. Isn't it? So Krishna has confused Arjuna. And not only that, after third chapter, in fourth chapter, Krishna is telling Arjuna, all work you do, all sacrifices you perform finally culminates in knowledge only. So that means knowledge is supreme. And once you realize you have no duty to perform, and why are you asking me to perform? Why are you asking me to fight? This is how it was. So he is asking the conclusion, please tell me whether I should fight or I should renounce work. What is better? So, in the very first shloka, Krishna explains, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of works. So one is wherein one renounces his duties, everything, and just tries to accumulate knowledge through the Vedic literatures, not engaging his senses actively in different kinds of engagements and services. And that is not very practical, Krishna is saying. It is better to work in devotion. And then like this Krishna explains. Then in the third one, Krishna says, this is interesting. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. So Krishna is telling him, why you want to become externally renounced? Isn't it? That kind of renunciation is very difficult. And there are chances, lot of chances of failure in that. Renouncing the work. Krishna is saying, if you want to be always renounced, follow this. Don't hate failures, nor you desire your fruits. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities. You see, that's all. So, that is how a devotee acts. When a devotee is acting, if he is thinking, and sometimes, some devotees, when they go out for preaching, they realize this actually. Someday they are very fired up and they are preaching heavily, and result Krishna may show nothing. Finally, may not get anything, and he becomes dejected. And someday the Lord sends somebody, even without his knowledge, somebody comes, Swamiji, I want to give a check of 2.5 lakh. Please accept. Isn't it? Yes. Devotees realize how the Lord works. We do not know. So, better if we realize early, we will be free from all tensions. Isn't it? Devotee should only think like this. The Lord has plans. Whom he wants to engage, we have no idea. Somebody we may think, yes, very pious man, he will give, he should respond, may not respond. Somebody we may not even think, and sometime he may come forward to serve the Lord. My duty is, there are millions and millions of souls eagerly waiting. I just have to go and knock the doors and see who is waiting to receive. That's all we have the duty to perform. So, if we work with this understanding and not getting dejected when the fruits are not coming, and becoming elated when fruits are coming, then definitely, it will be difficult for us to work constantly in service of the Lord, if we are influenced by the fruits. So neither hatred nor rejoicing rejoice can be there when we see the hand of the Lord. That rejoicement is good. You will advance. But at the same time, in failure also, then you should be able to see the hand of the Lord. In success, you saw. In failure also, we should see that the Lord wants to teach me something. Probably the Lord wants to make me understand I am not the doer. He is the doer. Correct? So, if we can appreciate the hand of the Lord, even when result comes or does not come, that is good. But otherwise, today good collection and everybody is appreciating. And then few days work hard in that consciousness and think, if I don't bring good results, what devotees will think. And if we start working in that consciousness and we find result is not coming, then we become dejected. Days together, no inspiration to go out. See? We should not be so much conditioned. That is what Krishna is explaining. How one can be liberated even while staying in this material body. Yes, you can be liberated. There are more things, but I think it's already time. A lot of pages are there to read. We'll read few of them, I think. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.